Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of ModChat. In case you do not know, this is a podcast I do here at least monthly in two different forms. First of all, I do it in a video form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube channel, where there are actual visuals to it, and that does help out with a little bit of the show and tell portions that we like to do here sometimes. I also have a audio-only version of it, so you can take this around and listen to it well like an actual podcast. Simply look up ModChat, all one word, on your favorite podcasting app or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. We're not available on all major podcasting platforms, so we're available on most of them. Anyways, this is a show where I kind of just round up several modding related topics that I find interesting and kind of talk about them on here. It's not necessarily a news show or even a breaking news show by any means, but just something that's kind of a little laid back fun, and if you learn something from it, that is absolutely fantastic. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop into this month's episode of ModChat. We do have several different topics here, actually a good amount, I would say, varying a whole lot of different, platforms, systems, and even just topics overall. Let's just hop into this. First of all, I did want to shout out a new up-and-coming site. This has actually been in the works for a while, and I just want to say this is nothing that is paid promotion by any means. This is more just, I guess, a favor to a friend, but on top of that, also just really getting the word out on this really awesome resource. This is ConsoleMods.org, and as it states here, we are a collaborative community focused on collecting and preserving the ephemeral knowledge of console modifications, repairs, and restoration methods. Visit any of these sub-wikis below to view relevant pages or crossed out pages that are waiting for someone like you to fill out. When half of the items on the page are filled out, the icon for the sub-wiki will be made solid. Current-gen consoles are excluded. Now, if anybody has ever been on any of the hacks-related subreddits over on Reddit, for example, PS3 hacks, PS4 hacks, 360 hacks, of course, for those accompanying systems, most, if not all of them, have been created and moderated by a gentleman by the name of Durf Jagged. Now, he has been working on this for a while because not only the subreddits were there, but he was making wikis on the subreddit, which I have also referenced here on the channel several times for different videos. And he's really been porting that knowledge over and information from the wikis onto an actual wiki like we have here with ConsoleMods.org to get it to a nicer point, a more centralized resource, and really just something that's a lot more accessible to everyone. Even just looking here, for example, let's go with Xbox 360, right? If we click on this, we can see information in regards to error codes here in which you can run through this, a whole lot of information here, my goodness. If you need any information on NAND flashers, oh, here's a newer one, Pico Flasher. Let's take a look at this. So we have information here in regards to Pico Flasher. Tutorials as well too, just as basic as how can I hack my Xbox 360, and you can walk through all of this, which is great. I know some of it is looking to be fleshed out as well too, like exploit methods that go into drive flashing, and I will say a big shout out to them for plugging my videos here, in which there's videos linked for flashing a fat Xbox 360 drive and a couple of these slims, but I do know it would be absolutely invaluable to have really a written guide on here as well too, even photos and such. There's even further stuff you could see here, like schematics and motherboard images, where these are actually new, fresh images that were created and donated, or I guess contributed, so to speak, over to ConsoleMods. So this is just some of the newer stuff we're seeing here, and like looking at this is a much nicer Xenon motherboard image than I've ever seen before. So this is a great contribution to see. Now, it's not just Xbox 360, you're also seeing a lot more here in regards to Nintendo-related systems, Sony systems, even Atari systems, handhelds, all of this here. And this is all available to look at and work on, except for, well, it says current-gen consoles. So you won't have the Xbox Series S, the Series X, the PlayStation 5, or even, I'm wondering, no, the Switch would not be on here. Alright, that's understandable. But like Wii U, just because it's frosted out doesn't mean that information's not available there. Like we can look at, I don't know, for example, creating game backups, and there is a really good guide here we're now seeing on the details of creating a Wii U game backup. Now, the big thing with ConsoleMods is a lot of the contributions here have been ported over from already existing wikis, and there's been fresh new information that's been added on here as well too. But that is really the biggest thing they are looking for right now. The people over at ConsoleMods, and even Durf has talked to me directly and said they're really just looking for contributors. So if there are any consoles and any specific material you think would be valuable for console modding of really any of these systems here, anything older than the current generation, which covers a whole ton, feel free to sign in and create an account and contribute to ConsoleMods. And if you're looking for some information as well too, this is definitely shaping up to be a really nice centralized resource that we can, reference and gather stuff from. So that's about it. ConsoleMods.org. Check it out. Now, getting into some new developments, I kind of wanted to go from oldest to newest in a way. So we're starting with the oldest here with MetalNES or MetalNES. This is actually from developer, what's their name? Icer Addis, which if you don't recognize their name, and that's all good if you don't, this was admittedly a little bit before my time, this is actually the same developer behind Nesticle and Snesticle, which Nesticle is a lot of people's first foray into good and easy emulation, which is, of course, a Nintendo or Nintendo Entertainment System or NES emulator. Now, this here is a new emulator that same person is working on. It states here, transistor level NES 001 simulation. Builds on OS X only for now, no MMU support, only possible due to tremendous efforts of Visual 2CO2 and Visual 2A03, which let me even see these here. So it looks like these are both from the NES Dev Wiki, but this is kind of an overview for Visual 2CO2 and 2CO3. Alright, this is straight up just a transistor layout of this here. It's mentioned that added support chips for main board, support voltage ladders for composite output, and audio needs lots of optimization. And there's no built release already here, but the source code is available. And again, the big thing is here, this is really one of the biggest pioneers of modern day emulation as we know, now working on kind of going back to his roots here, going back to the original Nintendo and working on transistor level emulation of the Nintendo. This is really cool to see. I just wanted to shout this out here. Next up, we've also covered Silent's work, and I believe the last thing that I had covered from him was when he had uncovered a full Xbox 360 port of a Virtua Fighter game within one of the Yakuza games. That was it. So here he ended up releasing this, which is a blog post covering a Gran Turismo 2 combined disc. Now, for anyone who does not know, Gran Turismo 2, right here for the original PlayStation, came on 2 discs. Disc 1 was arcade mode, disc 2 was the simulation mode. And what he did was, with him and the help of some other people, they went through this and attempted to create a combined disc of the two, and it actually ended up working. Now, I'm kind of just doing a high-level overview of this, but it looks like their attempt was here to work with the simulation disc as a base, but they were adding missing files from the arcade disc, added a new main menu entry to start in arcade mode or simulation mode, and then modify textures localizations to refer to arcade or simulation mode as opposed to disc 1 or 2. And you could even see here as they were getting this up and running, now at this point when you use the combined disc, it shows, arcade mode or simulation mode, this is what they're able to use and boot into, and it looks quite stock. There's a lot more you can get into here with this write-up, and this download is not just for like an ISO of the disc here, this is actually for a script, because this is all using a Python script which Silent has written here, which you'll have to essentially follow the instructions on that, provide the 2 discs that you're trying to combine, and then pair those with the script and the script instructions to then create yourself a combined Gran Turismo 2 disc, which something like this is what I love to see. It's cool because revisiting this not only brings about, that modern day convenience, but a lot of times this also shows that many of these 2-disc games especially were 2 discs not because they had to be, but kind of more as a marketing gimmick, so to speak. I know aside from this, Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation was another game where the entire game could have been fit onto 1 disc, but they ended up splitting it onto 2 discs to kind of give it the illusion of, I mean, this was the late 90s, so it's like the logic was bigger is better, and bigger is 2 discs, and bigger equals more game. I know even in the early aughts, there was the Dead or Alive games. When Dead or Alive 1 and 2 got released on the original Xbox, they came in a double disc pack, 2 separate, like a nice like cardboard pack, but 2 separate cases, 2 separate cover arts, 2 separate discs, 2 separate manuals, one for Dead or Alive, one for Dead or Alive 2. And even if you look at the disc contents, they're actually identical. It's not even that they're just sharing assets. It's like the discs are identical. And there's one INI file, or I believe there's a setting file in there that essentially is just a flipped bit. It's, do you want this disc to boot up Dead or Alive, or do you want it to boot up Dead or Alive 2? So they very well could have done the same thing and could have just shipped that onto one disc. But I remember years ago, not only MVG covered that, but even a few years prior, because I was dumping it and I saw that, I ran it by a friend. I was just bringing it up in conversation, and he kind of brought up that same thing too, because I was asking, like, as developer, why would they do this? He said, well, if this is like the early aughts, that would make sense. It was the idea that bigger is better. So yeah, if they're shipping out 2 discs, they probably want to physically show as well too that you're getting twice the amount of game for what you're paying. So even though they could have shipped it out on 1 disc, it was marketing to ship it out as 2. So that's cool to see that we're able to, I guess, save the digital environment and shrink those down to 1. Also, it's more convenient. Just love seeing stuff like this. Over on the original Xbox, this ended up surprising me here. This was cool to see. This is some new kernel patches for the original Xbox here. Now, this is called Titan, and just looking at this overview, Titan is a series of handwritten binary patches for the original Microsoft Xbox kernel. These patches are designed to expand the storage capabilities of the popular 2001 game console in excess of 16 terabytes. This is achieved by modifying the kernel to support LBA48 and extending the number of addressable 512-byte disk sectors in the I/O stack. Special thanks to Mike Davis for his serial debugging tools, Matt Borgerson for his tireless efforts on XEMU and FATX, and finally, Paul Bartholomew for his original LBA48 research from 2003, which facilitated up to 2 terabytes for the past 15 years. And that is a pretty popular patch there. All of these people and their open source works play an important role in the creation of Titan. Now, this is experimental and there is usage on here. Again, this is related to Python, so you really have to take the patch that is on here. You're going to have to utilize Python, and you're going to use that Python script to patch your kernel before you flash it over. Now, there's a lot of other additional notes as well here too in regards to partitions, formatting, the cluster setup, like for example saying it is strongly recommended to format large disk over 2 terabytes with 1024 sectors per cluster, 500 kilobytes. Now, this is also another thing that I found pretty interesting, the UDMA right here. This is not only just increasing the size, but check this out. The retail Xboxes uses UDMA2 33 megabits per second by default, as do many all modified BIOS. The maximum supported UDMA mode by the Xbox Southbridge is UDMA 5, which is about 100 megabits per second from hard drive to CPU. Now, it states UDMA 5 does not work with all IDE to SATA adapters, but is confirmed working with the StarTech adapters, but has not been properly benchmarked. And it's also saying that it's unstable on some other adapters, but UDMA 4 seems to be okay. The thing here is that this is introducing a new UDMA that we haven't seen on the original Xbox, meaning that even with this patch, you can increase the speed of which you're able to read and write to the hard drive. That's awesome. It's also noting here, yes, increasing the UDMA mode has been profiled to improve some game load times in excess of 20%, and it will require an 80-pin IDE cable. So far, it seems like a lot of homebrew seems to be okay, FTP seems to be okay. The dashboards that have been tested seem to be alright. They're stating that FTP via Xenium OS is probably risky. And this is more tuned for the M8 Plus kernel. So it's stating here, yeah, Titan is only supported on the M8 Plus kernel. M8 Plus is a modified version of the final retail kernel. But these patches can be ported over to other kernels. It's just not something that the main developer here is planning on working on. So they're really just working on this main one here. And it looks like the two contributors have been Gassi Dellin as well as Kato GTP. So I do want to thank them for their work on this and this release. This was absolutely surprising and astounding and really cool. Something I personally need to mess with as well too. So not only you can get a huge storage increase on the original Xbox, and this is saying in excess of 16 terabytes, so theoretically you can go higher than that. But on top of this, also just getting that speed boost is nice too. I love seeing old put into, well, new developments put into old systems. I love that. And still speaking of the original Xbox, this is an interesting development here. I will say it doesn't look like this is even I would say recommended, and we'll get into that, but there's been a few HDMI projects in the works on the original Xbox. Of course, we have the Make Megahertz Xbox HD Plus or Xbox HDMI, which I reviewed here on the channel. I do know that Black Dog Tech is working on a solution as well that we haven't heard from in a while, but Risey119 has also been working on one as well too, and it looks like Risey119 released his project in a open source state. This is stating here, original Xbox 100% digital HDMI prototype. Note, this is a working but unfinished prototype. I don't plan to improve this further. See the Xbox HD Plus for a properly finished product with way more features. Now, it looks like there's some screenshots that they took as well too from this, which this is from Halo 2. This has to be SSX 3, and this has to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. So awesome to see. Now, this looks pretty similar, of course, to the Make Megahertz HDMI solution, although, again, this is unfinished, and they've just kind of released this as is here, saying this is a prototype board which should work with all Xbox revisions. However, a new flex will be needed to accommodate 1.6 motherboards, which makes sense. 480i does not work reliably. Use a Force 480p BIOS. And even looking right here, this looks pretty similar to the Make Megahertz HDMI solution, which to me just kind of shows that multiple people could be working on the same thing in their own ways, and it's going to be, you know, pretty close. Everyone's going to be pretty close on it. I'm not sure if there was any work there that was shared, but certainly we have this here. So we can see the flux cable here that was created and installed on the encoder chip itself. The actual how do I say, the video port was removed here. You still need the jumpers there to just allow the system to boot up properly. It's interesting how this is set up here. And then even, again, the board here looks pretty similar, the PCB itself. And then this is one of it, like one of these boards wired in and installed, I'm assuming by Risey119. But either way, you know, this is a project that it doesn't seem to be like, hey, ready for the public to just use, install in their Xboxes and go crazy with it. But this is certainly a project that was at a point where it's, you know, working, but still unfinished. But big credits to Risey119 for releasing this open source. This is really cool to see, and I think it's appreciated. Over on the PlayStation Vita, we end up getting a new port here from developer Renegadamante, which is Ikaruga, which I didn't even know this existed. This is a Ikuruga demake and a port of that demake over to the PlayStation Vita. Just looking at this here, this is a bullet hell shmup. It's one of the few that I've really put some time into, and I mean, it's difficult, it's challenging, but I love this game. I believe it's developed by Treasure, and I didn't even know that this demake existed. But this is just really cool to see overall. It's stating here, Ikaruga is a demake of the popular bullet hell game Ikaruga, released in 2002 for the Dreamcast and 2003 for the GameCube. That's where I played it. Ikaruga is a vertical shoot-'em-up that features a unique polarity switching gameplay. Switch the ship's polarity and get hit and absorb enemy bullets, achieve high score, and the chain bonus. And it looks like here you can just go over to the download section on VitaDB and download and install it. So really cool to see. Shout out to Rene Gadamonte and thank you for this. Another Vita port is always welcome. And speaking of the Vita here, this is, how do I say, I know we were kind of going from old to new on here with these systems, and I didn't really know where to put this because this is on the Switch, but it's related to the Vita, so I kind of just put this into the Vita section here. But this also surprised me. This is Vita 2 HOS by developer Zerpy. Now, this is stating here a PlayStation Vita to Horizon OS, Nintendo Switch OS translation layer, not an emulator. So this is pretty similar to what we've seen several months ago with the Spine. I want to say the Spine quote-unquote emulator, which in case you did not know, that's something I've covered here as well too, in which it is a quote-unquote, again, emulator for, it's a PS4 emulator, so to speak, on Linux, but it's not necessarily an emulator, it's translation layer. So it's trying to really just translate all of the PlayStation 4 code there to work with Linux calls, which we're seeing the same thing here. This is a PlayStation Vita translation layer working on the Nintendo Switch. So stating here, how does it work? PlayStation Vita and ARM v7 CPU executables can run natively on Nintendo Switch ARM v8 CPU in 32-bit execution mode. When loading a PlayStation Vita executable, Vita 2 HOS redirects the module imports of said executable to jump to routines that implement the same behavior by using native Horizon OS services like the one exposed by the original PlayStation Vita OS modules. So this is really cool to see here. This is for Atmosphere custom firmware. It looks like you have to use this Vita 2 HOS NSP. You're going to have to create a override config INI to set this up, and then you're going to be using your PlayStation Vita executables. Now, the only thing here is that for anybody expecting retail games to work right off the bat here, no, this is not going to be for retail games right now. This is really just for homebrew, so you can get like basic homebrew, basic tests set up and running there. But in regards to any type of retail PlayStation Vita games, it's not to that point. No promises it will ever be to that point, but it is open source, so if people ever want to, report issues or even do pull requests on here or fork it, they're more than welcome to. But Vita, in a way, natively on the Switch is really cool. Not emulation here. It's a translation layer. This is super cool to see. Now, I did want to highlight a new GoldHEN update. This is update 2.2.0, and it introduced something pretty cool that I've wanted to actually cover in a way here, but I love this method of doing it. We can go ahead and come over here to the releases, and over at the releases, the latest update here introduces a cheat menu. Now, it's stating here the cheat menu is experimental, use with caution. Please report cheat menu related issues to the cheat authors, and you have to read this cheat menu MD for more information. And it looks like this was coded by CTN123, Shinigami, and Sistro. But this is just baked right into GoldHEN, meaning if you're utilizing a host that is on the latest version of GoldHEN, you already have access to this. In fact, this is so cool that I could just keep sitting here talking about this, but I could also just show you all as well too. We got a jailbroken PS4 here, might as well give it a shot. So full disclosure, I have already tried this out. That is also why I'm excited about it, and I do have Dead Rising running right here already. Now I have already, booted up my PS4, booted up into GoldHEN 2.2.0, but just to give you all, a fair shake of it here, I'm running Dead Rising version 1.0. I've transferred over the files I need to. Let's go ahead and launch this, and this is actually a game I really want to revisit again as well too. Definitely one of my favorites, but got this all up and running. Now there's a couple ways we can do this. We can either hold down the share button for a few seconds, or we can come out here to the XMB, press the options button, and there's this GoldHEN cheat menu right here. So I think the smoother way, in my opinion, the cool way of doing this here is just holding down the not settings button, but the share button. And if we do that, check this out. Just like that, we go into the cheat menu. Now, this is loaded up from a JSON file that I've already transferred over to my console, but we can go ahead and do some of this stuff here. So like a quick level up, and just like that, it's enabled. If we untick that, it's disabled, but let's go ahead, enable that, quickly kill zombies. Real Mega Blaster, sure, how about that? Max Photo PP score. So there we go. We have a few of those enabled. I'm going to come in here, go to Start Game, just load up my game that I've already set up here. And let's see. So check this out. Actually, let me get somewhere here. All right. I'm like literally right at the beginning of this. And my game had crashed at a point, unfortunately, where I wasn't able to save when I made some progress. So I'm kind of just coming back right here to the beginning. But we have all this. All right, let's go out to the rooftop. I'm kind of just trying to get to a proper section of this game here. I'm going to skip that cutscene. All right. And we got Jeff over here, sure. But even one thing you all can see is just how Frank is. Actually, we're just going to skip this, let me just skip all of this. I'm just going to go down here. Why not? I just skipped ahead enough here that we're going to come right into the mall. So all good on this, but let's actually have some fun here. So I also want you all to notice just how annoying it is how Frank is walking at a level 1. But let's go ahead and snap ourselves a picture. And look at how explosive that is. So we have maximum PP on all of that already there. Okay, new skill mastered. This is just going to scream at us a ton here because I've already leveled up to a level 50 just with taking one photo, which is the maximum level that you can get in this game. And then even you'll notice that I've killed 0 zombies so far, but oh my god, one nice thing is Frank actually walks at a faster pace when we level up a little bit. So it's nice just getting up to level 50 and then running through this game. But even if we... No, not that. Can I... Okay, here. I was getting everything mixed up there. So even shooting some zombies, you'll see like every single zombie I'm killing is going to account for about... It looks like 2,501 kills. So I know there's one achievement or trophy that takes... I don't remember how much it is, but it's either like, I want to say it's some like 50,000 or so zombie kills to get it. So let's actually just see if we can get that. Let me go ahead and do this for a bit here. Just for fun here on ModChat, we're going to see if we can get this this trophy that I was talking about. I also just realized I don't have infinite health on here. I could have enabled infinite health, but I chose not to, so it's all good. Oh, I'm getting attacked. Okay, get off of me. There we go. I just checked here. So yeah, it looks like it was about 53,000. And, it's fine. This is also experimental as well, too, since we're using this in a game that, we're using this in a way where the game was not meant to do this here. As you can see, I got about 100,000 kills. So I was hoping that we'd be able to get the trophy here together, but it's all good. In a way, I've given you all, like, 2 trophies here, but this is just an example again of how easy it is to use this built-in cheat server. We don't have to rely on any other payloads, websites, nothing of the sort, and we can just have all the files right there on the hard drive of the PS4. This is just really great to see. I just absolutely love it. So there we go. Again, as easy as just hold down the share button, go in here, and yeah, even if I want God mode, all right, there we go. So oh, wow. Actually, that's pretty funny. I was getting eaten by a zombie, and it gave me health. So we're definitely in a upside-down world now at this point. Now, typically at the end of these episodes of ModChat, I like to find something related to modding that I think is, interesting, cool, funny, random, whatever it is. As long as it can somehow relate back to modding, I like to put it in here at the end, just kind of as an extra treat. You also might get to see a little bit of Lily there in the background. But either way, I did see something here from developer Illusion0001, which they are really known for making a lot of 60 frames per second patches on the PlayStation 4, but this is not PS4 related. This is actually, well, something else here. I just think it's cool when you're able to revive stuff like this. This is the Uncharted 3 multiplayer beta, now playable without PSN. So you could do it online or offline, you decide. And it seems like if you're going to play it online, you would probably have to use a tunneling service for this. It states here, "It is no secret that I have been on the Uncharted Reloaded team for a while, a group of dedicated and talented individuals in an attempt to revive the multiplayer servers that was offline since its closure in 2019. Now, they're stating here that recently I was tasked with solving a crash in one of the multiplayer public beta upon entering a secret LAN mode. This is the same beta that ran from June 28th to July 14th back in 2011. Normally, it's not possible to access this mode because the start screen you'll be prompted to sign in to PlayStation Network, which let's even see right here. Okay, so going through all of this, all right, press the start button, press the start button. They're going to do it here. And there we go. Yep, you need to be signed in. Now, it's possible to have access to the menus that was previously locked behind a PSN sign-in prompt. Before you ask, this does not get rid of the PSN authentication. It simply unlocks the menu, and the code probably goes something like this. So he was able to get a hold of a PlayStation 3, the actual hardware here, and started working on all of this. It's really cool just overall seeing the progress he was able to make here. He was able to actually get in game. But then even interestingly enough, once he was here, apparently just the menu performance was really bad, and this was because it was constantly trying to call out to get some videos and information from these URLs here, which of course no longer exist, so it just kept failing. But once he was able to get that all patched out, eventually he was able to get it all up and running at a proper frame rate, and well, he was able to get in game. This is really cool to see, and actually bring this online for the first time in, I mean, we could say, geez, over 10 years at this point. Yo, that's really awesome to see. So you can download the patch here, apply it to the eBoot, try it out yourself. But I just love seeing stuff like this. Anyways, that is about all for this episode of ModChat. If you enjoyed this episode, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. You are going to make that dog Lily back there, the one sleeping, really, really sad. But you know what? I also totally forgot that typically I do a keyword or key phrase if you get to the end of this episode, or just these episodes in general. And then if you use this keyword or key phrase as a comment on the YouTube upload, I'll know that you've made it to the end. So typically I just find something on my desk here, but how about dog? All right, if you use the word dog in your comment on the YouTube upload, I'll know that you've made it to the end when I'm going through, reading, and replying, and all that fun stuff. And if you're listening, don't worry, you're not excluded. Just come over to the YouTube upload, use the keyword dog, and I'll know that you've made it here. Anyways, again, that is about it for this episode of ModChat. If you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't, a dislike is fine as well too. But until next month.